Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hello, everybody. My name is Debbie from NDIS Property Australia, and you're listening to the SDA Housing Podcast, a show that explains, highlights, guides, and brings awareness about all things SDA in this ever-changing NDIS world. I have two very special guest speakers with me today. A regular speaker, Kevin from Paramount Disability Homes. Hi, Kevin.
Nice to be back. How you going, Debbie?
And we've got a first-time speaker who is a bit of a fan of the podcast. That's how Katalin came to us initially. Katalin is from Hand in Hand Support Coordination. Welcome, Katalin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Long-time listener, first-time speaker.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have speakers who've been listening to us for a while actually, come on and share some of your knowledge in the space. So, Katalin, you are a specialist support coordinator. Obviously, you're very involved in working with your clients to find housing is a lot of what you do. You work with quite complex cases, I believe, do hospital discharges and other things. So I thought it would be really a useful conversation just to have maybe you and Kevin from Paramount Disability Homes, who is, of course, an SDA provider, discuss the Melbourne market where you both work and give us a bit of a more of an understanding of, I guess, just the complexities, how things work from the two sides and the collaborations required.
Yeah, amazing. I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, I'm going to hand it over to you, Kevin.
Yeah, great. So obviously, I think we had a discussion on our last podcast about how we're utilizing some specialist disability accommodation to SDA properties for SIL purposes or for private rentals. And obviously, Katalin, she's a support coordinator, so she has obviously organized and helped participants or probably SIL providers obtain these sort of leases. So I thought today we would clear any, areas that are a bit gray in this space and see if we can better define how those leases would work out. So Katalin, do you want to sort of explain how you have helped previous participants or SIL providers with these leases?
Yeah. Thanks, Kevin. Yes, so I'm a special support coordinator. We work with mental health, intellectual disability participants, as well as housing specialists. So we work with various stakeholders, obviously the participants themselves, but some of my participants are represented in some way, some through OPAs, some through DFFH, and then we have hospital discharges as well. So it's a lot of interest in groups. And because of the disability type, some of us might know that intellectual and mostly psychosocial disabilities, having a hard time securing SDA funding in our current NDIS world, we do have to get creative from time to time. So that's where we step in and we source rental-like housing as well. So they can look different in each case. Sometimes we have rental, which are generally older stock held by the provider. Sometimes we have the SDA and the SIL provider differently as of different organizations. And sometimes I just work with the owners. So they are
amazing.
All different setups. Yeah.
So, how it sort of works for us is sometimes the support coordinators or the SIL providers will reach out to us directly because they know that there's obviously some vacancies in, the western suburbs of Melbourne. So is that how you're finding, your stop?
Yeah, I'm in eastern and southeastern suburbs, and most of my providers in these setups work in this area. And yes, I do have a book of people that I know what their houses are, what vacancies they have. And then when I have an inquiry, then I just look at my availability, which is flagged to me. or I know that they're available because, I travel around and I sometimes just drop into these properties and I offer it to them. If they're interested, then that's where the journey begins. So that's when I reach out to the providers. Are these places still available? What are the rent, or what are the requirements that you would like to see for these properties or for these rooms or for this part of the house? And I also have to represent the participant and because I have a working relationship with these owners and SDA providers, they trust me with what I bring to them. Yeah, I think trust is a very important part of this relationship. Not just the know-how, but the trust, because they know that I'm not going to put a HBS client to a home that is not going to fulfill his or her needs, or I'm not going to bring a high behavior of concern participant with mental health needs to a house that is not feasible to have a good relationship there with the residents or the tenants.
Yep. Amazing. So right off the bat, I'm thinking, we have currently in Melbourne, there is a lot of investors out there that have obviously bought into SDA properties and they need a solution as well. Us as an SDA provider in this market, it's very hard for us to help all these potential investors. So, obviously there is room here for these investors that are listening in, a potential solution, because again, not every participant will get funded for SDA, but how does the lease work from your end? So given that we have a property that's suitable for the participant, what are the next steps that you would do?
But generally, we buy in. So somebody already in that property, which is generally a fully funded SDA participant. And there is another room or another part of the house that is vacant for a longer period of time because of the location of the property. So I don't even touch a place until it hits the 1 year mark, because we know that about 10 to 12 months is where SDA clients find you. And some investors say, no, I'm happy to wait another year, and good on them because they have an income. But then some says, look, these are the little rental and we agree on the rental rate. Generally, my first point of starting is 30% of the DSP, because this is what is underwritten by the DFFH. And anything above that, we know that would create rental stress, which again would generate further stress on the participant to stay in that home, and it's not feasible for either parties. So then 30% of the DSP, and then we have a bit of a negotiation around the rental agreement. You might know that we have in Victoria, we have two types of rental agreements, one for general and one for disability rental. So then it's a conversation between the participant and the owners and maybe the OPA if they're involved. And then once we find an agreeable point, then I have to generally report that to state trustees. That's one of the other reasons that we have to have on the 30% DSV, because anything else, the state trustees will flag and might not approve. And if everything goes well, then we move in and, we start and hopefully everything goes well. Oh, obviously the functional capacity reports and all the reporting is also handed over to the providers just to assure them of feasibility of this agreement. And generally things work out.
That's quite nice. Yeah. So we've actually organized similar leases where participants have investor gets a first participant or an anchor participant in the house. And obviously, a lot of the SEAL providers, they struggle to find a second tenant. For them as well, running the SEAL operation with one participant, it's not always feasible. So similar to how you run it, we allow for them to bring on a SEAL funded client or a client that may not, in most cases will be funded for SEAL, but not SDA. And the contribution that they pay is usually negotiable. So we charge what's known as maximum reasonable rental contribution, which is 25% of the DSP plus, Commonwealth rental assistance and a few other charges. And the SEAL provider may choose to reimburse a portion as well back to the investor. So they might make an extra contribution, but it works very similarly, I guess, to what you're saying, because again, it helps out the investors. A lot of these suburbs will struggle to find that second tenant. It's a big win for the SEAL provider as well. But what about for participants that, for houses that are just completely empty? do you have something that you can think of to help these investors out?
I want to follow up on just what you mentioned before you move on. I think you touched on a very good point of the first participants, because let's just stay on that. Having the second participant in the house relieve financial stress and pressure from the sale provider as well. I think that's a very important point, because generally the sale providers and the SDA providers have good long-term relationships, and the one participant being in the house and only funded on 2-on-1, it's just not long-term feasibility for them. You know, they're missing out half of that income that they could have as sale provider, or even in some cases we've seen the commission approving short-term 1-on-1 on a participant in an extension of up to 6 months to keep the participant in the house and allow the sale and the SDA provider to find another participant. When there's this 6 months, sort of relief time coming up, that's why things getting a little bit more antsy, because they all know that they need somebody else, yeah? And having the second rental in relieve the pressure from the sale, not just the SDA. So I think you're right highlighting that point. Going forward, I honestly would love more braver SDA and investors on the market to trial out how it would work for me to start a sale house. I haven't done it yet because I just haven't found the partners are not there. Yeah. Everybody's waiting for end of 2025, early 2026. Most of you know that a lot of Victorian funded currently residing as SDA rental going to be needed. And I think a lot of people might be holding out on that when those older properties leave and they're holding on for the real, SDA to come in. My note to those investors and all those SDA providers is that, and I don't want to have a plug in here, but you have to have your dry support coordinator in order to secure your ongoing SDA. Yeah. Just because your participant is in an old SDA right now, it doesn't mean they're going to clear the SDA funding requirement for the next term. Yeah. So we might see a lot of SDA numbers at the moment, but the funding might not be there when the renew of plans coming up.
That was something, I'm just going to butt in here because this is a really good conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is something obviously we've had a discussion about before, Jonathan, Paramount and I, over, all of those hundreds, if not thousands of tenants living in these old homes and the difficulty in getting them with new funding in their plan. I mean, that is obviously a huge issue. So, how do you see from your perspective that sort of happening, Katalin?
I know this podcast is about housing, and that's great. And I love listening to it. I really do. I learned a lot over the years. But it's just, for me, that's almost the end process. Yeah. For me, starting from planning and creating the planning documents, make sure that we're capturing the right level of capacity. There is a lot of work going behind the scenes to get to the point of approved SDA level. So everybody's looking at these numbers from what I see, and I look at these charts and look at these reports and I say, okay, well, we have, extra amount. On the ground though, when I see these participants and I talk to the planners, it's not automated approval. And now that support coordination and it will have to be registered, yeah, we're leaving a lot of support coordinators and a lot of organizations leaving the industry. Yeah, it's a lot of reasons. Feasibility is one main one. And we have these participants out there that potentially have no support coordinators, potentially don't have long-term reliant OTs, potentially hasn't had a functional capacity for year on end, and their review is coming up, and I worry for them.
So I think the main issue that we're seeing as well is that these participants, just to maybe clear up this issue, is it was grandfathered. They were grandfathered into the SDA system. So a lot of these participants are on, let's say, $7,000 to $10,000 in SDA funding, and they have no option to move into a new build SDA because their funding is simply not enough. When we go through a change of circumstance, it really isn't a change of circumstance, in my opinion, because we don't need to justify to the NDIs that they need SDA because they already have SDA in their plan. But there's inconsistency inconsistencies with the NDIS in approving these participants, because are they fit to live with, get house 3 resident funding? Are they fit to get 1-to-3 SIL ratio funding? There is still, certain evidence that needs to be submitted to the NDIS to get them approved to that right plan. And a lot of the support coordinators don't understand that process. And again, there's no streamlined process to help all those participants secure the right funding to be able to move out. So that's the biggest issue we're seeing. Do you believe that, I guess, the NDIS or the, some sort of government policy maker can help all these participants get an automatic approval of higher funding? Do you think that's fair? Do you think it's feasible?
I think my short answer is no. I would love to say, yes, there is a website that you can go to and you can find everything out. I don't think it is. I don't think even the commission knows, or the NDIA knows how, or even the NDIS knows how to do this. And we made a career out of doing this because that's how vital this function is. Last week, I've just sent 3 testing in to the commission to test the eligibility of these grandfathered, like 3 of these participants coming out from these grandfathered properties. And it's a lot of work. We don't even have the NDIA planners allocated to these participants. So we have to go through the inquiry line because they never been, in some cases, the level of disabilities are not even some cases. I'm going to go to 80% of the cases that are grandfathered into the NDIS, the level of disability is not appropriately reported.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Like the data that the NDIS has to make decision on eligibility is not properly recorded in their system ever in the last 10 years. So for us to get somebody and say, oh, here's my plan, it says written in it that I am eligible for this, we have to have a serious conversation with them that, okay, it might say that, but you might not get it. And they don't understand why. Well, it's sit there. And we have to explain to them that we need to go through a whole new system now because the NDIS is changing. Yeah. And we need to have a whole audit on your current plan. And most of these participants, not even in the new system, or even if it's a new system, is not correctly registered. So we have to have, as you said, a change of circumstances, which is not a change of circumstances. We actually have 6 months of discovery on all of these plans to report the correct information.
Yep. And then there's still probably inconsistencies when it comes to what funding they get approved for. It would be extremely sad to see if these participants actually lose their SDA funding. That could be a potential as well.
Some of these participants don't even have the right SEAL funding.
Yeah. I think most of them don't because it's all 1-to-5.
Yeah. But even the 1-on-1 is not correctly funded. Because don't forget, the Victorian government has been subsidizing these SEAL providers for so long that the SDA, like part or the NDIS relied on that subsidy for so long that they don't even know how much they haven't paid. Or in some cases, they rely on families to take these participants out to social engagement. And when we actually represent that this is the social engagement time that has to be funded, we have to prove why the families are not taking them out.
So I was just going to ask, so for the participants out there that are living in these legacy homes, I'm so sorry that we've taken such a big turn on this podcast, but for those participants, what would be sort of the first steps for them if they're not enjoying their stay at a legacy home? How do they, because a lot of their own support coordinators probably won't understand this whole process.
Actually, I think at the specialist housing support coordinator who's willing to take level 2s, that would be my first step. That's challenging enough. But then from there, it's you need to make sure that all of your paperwork, all of your proof of disability are in order. So maybe it could say you might need to go down to your GP and you need to get a referral on the Medicare system, under the mental health or physical health cover to get your diagnosis letters under control, to like primary diagnosis. What's your primary diagnosis registered in NDIS? I reckon most of these people would not know. That's the first thing I have to find out as well. And then what are the secondary diagnoses that may or may not be reported? And then you need to find the documents and you need to get, in some cases, new tests done to prove it to the commission that it's relevant. we have several ways to do this, but yeah, these are the first steps. And then you get an OT functional capacity done based once you have those diagnostics in your hands. Don't forget that NDIS does not pay for diagnostics, yeah? And get a new functional capacity done, and then you're ready to submit your COCs. Because without all this, your COC application won't even be approved. The new system says that there is a pre-approval process for COCs now.
So I guess this really is highlighting the fact that there's going to be a lot of participants needing new homes. We know that. A lot of them are not going to have much SDA funding. They may not qualify once they've gone through that entire process, Katalin, that is obviously very complex and long, but they still need housing. So, this comes back into, I guess, inserting them as second or third tenants in existing properties. And that's, I guess, where we were at the beginning of this conversation in what you're doing and getting these rentals in.
Yeah, and this takes time, yeah? So all of this. So if we have more brave and sort of future-looking partners, both SDA and investors, then you can capture this market. You give them rental. Yes, you're still going to get your rental money, but this process of approval might take 6 to 12 months, yeah? And honestly, you're in this market because you want to have people, yeah? That's the base of it. You invest into this industry because that's what you want to do. So I would like to just encourage everyone, please do it. I know you want the SDA money. We all want you to have the SDA money because you deserve it, yeah? You built and invested into a purpose-built property. I'm not trying to shortchange you. I'm trying to encourage you to understand us a little bit better and help us out when we need help. So have a conversation with those support coordinators that they know what they're talking about. Have a conversation with the families or those SDA providers that they know what they're talking about, and have a bit of a vision. I think that's what I'm here to ask. That having a bit of a vision and buy into those participants that can live in a quality environment, and we have time to secure and keep them safe, and then we will secure the SDA for you as long as everything goes well. Yeah, that's my sales pitch to all my SDA providers.
Yeah, it's a great outcome because, again, these participants have the ability to transition into SDA. But even if they don't, it's still a nice little contribution that you get, because the chances of getting a second tenant or third tenant is quite hard in this market for a lot of areas.
And don't forget, you're still going to have your seal. If you have a good relationship with your seal provider, you can do whatever you want with your seal and SDA. That's outside of my purview. It's for you to work it out. And I'm not saying that the seal provider should be paying SDA's ridiculous amount of money. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you have a good relationship with your seal providers. You helping your seal providers out. Yeah. So the seal providers, I'm sure, will help you out as well.
Yeah. And yeah, this is as you said, at the end of the day, it's investing into disability people and giving them a place to stay. So
that's right.
Over time, we need to condition ourselves to give better accommodation solutions to the whole sort of NDIS market, not to participants funded first.
There are other supported housing options, and they are just not nice. They're not nice in Victoria. Most of them, I'm going to say.
Moving forward, this has been a really good conversation on a very difficult part of the whole housing of people with disability. But moving forward, what sort of properties, Katalin, do you think are still needed? As in, if investors are still looking to get into this and they're at the early stages, and what is needed? What are you seeing is needed out there?
Ooh, I'm going to be very cautious here because I know some things are happening on this industry around previous organizations' recommendations. And I know those people and I appreciate what they've done. Therefore, I'm going to go of everyone's investment should be their own decision. I think investing money. I feel for what I'm seeking, we have good properties on the market and good properties to come. I don't feel that for what I need, yeah? So for introduction, disability and mental health, I do not work with HPS. Well, we don't have HPS clients because that's just not our bread and butter.
Sure.
So all of my participants physically able-bodied participants, I'm very happy with the stock that I have in Melbourne, because as we all know, we have whatever reason, that's a whole different podcast. HPS is a lot around me, and that is my dream. HPS is my dream, but it's been built. Yeah. I know some people after apartments, and I know there's going to be some developments in the city, and yes, city is needed, but I think city investors should get the SDA money. In today's day and age, you can't expect someone to invest into the city and just get rental rate. It's not fair on them.
Of course. So basically, you'll say more robust in the areas where there is undersupply.
Well, if robust is the answer, I don't know if robust is the answer, because to be fair, I have robust funded participants, and I ended up putting them in HPS. And the investors were fine, first client in the house. It's not that big of a difference on the one occupant robust funding than one occupant HPS. And my personal experience is that my robust funded participants without behavior of concern, without property damage behavior of concerns, are happier in HPS.
Okay.
But
This is very interesting because obviously someone can move into whatever property they want, but I was under the impression, and obviously I've been led astray here, or not quite got it, that someone with robust funding cannot reside in anything but a robust enrolled house.
Well, you haven't had me as a support coordinator, I suppose.
Kevin, from an SDA provider's perspective, what do you see? You see that?
Yeah, the rule is that robust clients can't live in apartments. They're not allowed
I
to
know
live in
that.
Yeah,
Correct.
but they can live in a high physical support house if they wish to.
Yes.
So choice and control still belongs to the participant. Do we recommend it? If they have property damage concern, behaviours concern, probably not.
Obviously not, yeah.
But if they don't have...
And sorry to butt in, but that's where the reliability of information and the reliability of partners come into play. Yeah. When I say to my people who I've been working for years that this is what it is, and I show them and I have the introduction with them, and they experience my participants, and they're happy for them to move into a HPS because there is clearly there might be a lot of behavior of concerns, but no property relevant damage behavior of concerns, then they fine. I have found that sometimes I have property damage relevant, behaviors for participants who are not funded for SDA because they're psychosocial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, there is a lot of consistencies within the NDIs.
There certainly are.
Yeah, for robust clients, in my opinion, I find a lot of them can't live with other clients. Is that what you're seeing as well?
Yes and no. I have a particular case that I'm struggling with because we're going to solve it. But yes, so they're saying that particular participant cannot live with others, yet the funding is 2-on-1. Yeah. So at the moment, we don't have anybody with them, and it's not fun, but they funded for 2.
You mean 1 to 2 funding, so 1 carer with 2 parties?
Yes.
Yep.
No. The seal funding is 2-to-1.
2 carers to 1 participant.
But the SDA funding is for 2 people to live together.
Yeah, but there's always inconsistencies in SIL and SDA. Yeah.
Yes, but then if that area, and that's what we're working through at the moment, if that area picks up that he lives and the SDA provider, and they never said they would, so that's not the participant in any way not in danger of losing the home or at least live with somebody. But if you think about it, if you have to move somebody else in which paper you only funded for, and that individual will have to live with another person, that's where it gets funny. But yes, most of my robust participants live independently, or sometimes they live in a larger house and I can get a rental in to the opposite side of the house.
So do you think the concept of, it might be a house or it might be villas or a duplex, but always for robust having separate living areas, separate kind of dwelling areas where there might be a common area,
yes,
but they've got their own living space, they've got their own residence essentially.
They have to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That works much better.
And then somehow because of the setup of the property.
Yeah. Just something that I was discussing with someone actually in the Perth market. there seems to be quite a bit of demand for participants with robust funding who want to live with their family. So Appendix H. So can't share with another participant, but certainly have always lived with their family and can stay with their family. So there's apparently a bit of demand picking up there for single tenancy robust properties, but as Appendix H. And for those of you who don't know what I'm referring to here, it's a little extra funding so that the participant can live with non-SDA tenants in the property, i.e. family or friends or whatnot. Are you seeing that in the Melbourne market?
A lot of participants don't know about Appendix H, and what the process to get it is if they do want to live with their family and take on a whole lease of the property, given that they have SDA funding, they can move in and then we will provide a letter of quote to the NDIS. It doesn't require change of circumstance. It requires just an adjustment to the plan. And often they get that extra 20 to 30 grand in SDA funding. So it works out quite nicely for the investor as well. But yeah, it's definitely an option that people don't know too much about. And we're constantly, the first thing is I want to live independently. We ask them if they want to bring their families. And then, it works out for a win-win for the investors.
Fabulous. And I don't think there's debt Appendix H extra funding. It's on a case-by-case basis. Is that correct?
Yeah, it depends on how many rooms there are in the house. So obviously a 3-bedroom house will probably get more in Appendix H funding than a 2-bedroom house, depending on design category as well. But generally speaking, it boosts the funding by 20 to 30 grand, what I've seen.
Great. All right. I don't want to continue on too much longer. We've already gone over half an hour. Thank you for your time. Do you have either of you, Katalin or Kevin, have anything you wanted to add to round up this conversation?
Oh, I think, really great to have that conversation with Katalin today and you, Debbie, as well. But yeah, just for investors out there, I think, remember why you've invested into this scheme. Again, we're trying our best to help out everyone, participants, because not everyone will get SDA funding, but a lot of people do need accessible or robust type of housing. And we just want to give a solution to as many people as we can in this space.
Yeah. I would double down on this as well. And thanks for wrapping it up, Kevin. I think it's I know some people having it very tough out there because they invested at the wrong place, and I generally feel for them, but not all lost. If you can't get out and you just take a breath and let's talk to us, be a little bit creative, be a little bit more brave. And, it's costing you money already. You might as well help others, and you never know what the future holds. Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Katalin. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much.
As a guest speaker. And again, thank you very much, Kevin, as almost my co-host today.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was very fun.
No, it's been a great conversation, and I think just helps investors understand a little bit more about the complexities. We always talk about how hard it is to find the right tenants with the right funding for properties, and this might give you a little bit more insight just into what is going on in the background there. So I think that is us for today. So thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you later. Bye-bye. See ya.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.